What's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in another video today. Today we're going to be recapping all of the Houston Texans draft selections from the 2023 NFL Draft. I know it's a little late. Draft ended on Saturday, and today is Monday afternoon. But been busy the last couple. After the draft was over on Saturday. I mean, it's so much of talking about these guys and doing all that. Figured wait another day to recap the Texans draft. Then had a really busy day yesterday. Went to the Stros game, had a lot of fun there, and just said I'll do it tomorrow. So we're gonna be recapping all of the Houston Texans 9 draft picks in this year's draft. I'm just skipping the first round here. If you're avoiding the first round for the Houston Texans, I think the Houston Texans, besides the first round, obviously the Texans, they won the first round. I mean, I don't think that's, some teams did really good. I thought the Eagles did really good with having Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith both fall to them. A couple other teams did really good. But the Texans not only got C.J. Stroud, who I know a lot of fans and a lot of, football people think he's not going to be an NFL player, a good NFL player, but I think he's going to be a good NFL player. I don't think he's going to be as good as Bryce Young. I don't think so at all. I think Bryce Young will be the better player, but I think C.J. Stroud is going to be a hell of a football player. And then they get Will Anderson Jr., arguably the best defensive player in college football last season, and definitely the best defensive college football player in this draft. And got him too. So you got Anderson Jr. on the defense as outside linebacker now. You have C.J. Stroud at quarterback. Texans in the first round obviously won the first round, but if you're talking about some of the other picks the Texans made from rounds 2 to 7, I love it. I love mostly all of these picks. So quick recap of the first round: C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson Jr. Love those two picks. I think C.J. Stroud will have an up and down rookie year. I think it's going to take him some time to develop in the NFL. But besides that, I think he's going to have a decent rookie season. I think he's going to have a decent career. Now, Will Anderson Jr. I think Will Anderson Jr. is going to have a hell of an NFL career. I think he's going to have a really good rookie season, probably one of the best I think, in my opinion, I think Will Anderson Jr. will win Defensive Rookie of the Season next year for the Houston Texans. And yeah, so I got Will Anderson Jr. winning Defensive Rookie of the Season next year. And hell of a pick right there to not only get Will Anderson Jr. for trading up from 12 to 3, but also getting C.J. Stroud for your new franchise quarterback at 2 and 3. But then round 2 through round 7, you make 7 selections from round 2 to round 7, and there are about, I think, 4 of these selections that I absolutely love, and let's get into it. Starting with Juice Scruggs, I think he's a hell of a player at 62, which the Texans trade out in the second round to get him. I'm excited about him. I think if he's a starter for the Texans, I think he's going to be a great player. He's strong. He's a great offensive lineman, great blocker. I think good things are to come for him if he plays a lot for the Texans next season. Then Tank Dell, at 69 for the Texans. I think Tank Dell, he's going to have an amazing career. I think for me, the only problem is, how much he touches the field next season with the amount of wide receivers for the Texans next year. You got Noah Brown, who had a hell of a year with the Cowboys. I think he's gonna next season with the Texans. I think he's gonna have an amazing year. Robert Woods, you signed from the Titans. You have Nico Collins and John Mechie. Where does Tank Dell fit in? I know a lot of people think Texans fans think that Tank Dell is going to be a starter. Some even think Tank Dell and Xavier Hutchinson are going to be starters, who we both drafted in this year's draft. But some people are really forgetting about some of the additions like Robert Woods and Noah Brown. I think those guys are going to have, a huge part of the Texans offense next year, and not even including, getting John Mechie back. If I'm the Texans, here's the offense. I'd probably go with wide receiver 1, Robert Woods. Wide receiver 2, Noah Brown. Wide receiver 3, John Mechie. Wide receiver 4, Tank Dell. Wide receiver 5, Nico Collins. And wide receiver 6, Xavier Hutchinson. And those are the 6 guys that make it onto the 53-man roster at the wide receiver position. If Tank Dell does well, maybe he can become a starter, at some point in 2023. But if not, 2024 could be an opening for him. No, Brown's a free agent the next season, and then also Robert Woods could only he signed a 2-year contract, but I wouldn't be surprised if Texans end up moving Robert Woods next season after this year's over with him. So I think a decent 2023 season for Tank Dell, but if we're really looking at his upside, I think 2024 is probably going to be his year where he shows his true potential for the Houston Texans. I think he's going to have a hell of a career. I think it's a hell of a pick right there. At 109 in the 4th round, the Houston Texans select Dylan Horton from TCU, defensive tackle. I love this pick here for the Texans at TCU with TCU. Need help stopping the run. Dylan Horton, he's a guy who's going to stop the running strong. Great run stopper last year with TCU. Great at pressuring the quarterback as well. He's a huge QB rusher, and I think if he plays, which might not happen, I think he is a hell of a player and could play decent next season if he plays. Then at 167, I think one of the steals of the draft for the Houston Texans with this pick, Henry To'oTo'o, a guy who was actually maybe expected to go in the first round in last year's draft, not this year's draft, last year's draft. Stayed another year with Alabama. And I don't know what caused him to go from 1 to 4, but Texans select him at 167. I love this kid. I think he, the way he eyes the field, and he's a decent leader. I really wanted the Texans to get to Marvion Overshown in this year's draft at linebacker. The Cowboys got him at 90. I think this was the second best option for the Houston Texans. I think if he plays, which with depth could be a problem for him in his rookie year, I think he's a hell of a player and will play some decent part when he starts to play for the Houston Texans. I think he's a really good player. Then at 201, the Houston Texans select Jared Patterson. He's a guy who's, he drafted Juice Scruggs at center, but, Patterson could also play guard, so can Scruggs. So I don't think we really know. I don't think Caceres talked about what's the plan with Scruggs and Patterson, and I don't think they really will know that until a couple weeks or maybe longer. At 201, they liked what they saw. I like what I saw too. He's a great blocker. Only allowed two sacks in 46 starts. I really like the kid. I think he's a good player, but you already did draft Juice Scruggs at 62 at center, so maybe one's moving to right guard. Who knows with the Houston Texans? At 205, the Houston Texans traded for Xavier Hutchinson, wide receiver. Now, I like the move here, and I'll say why. Because this was a guy who's expected to go in the 4th, 3rd round, maybe 5th round. You got him at the kind of end of the 6th round, and that's why I like it for the Texans. But this is a guy who's going to be your wide receiver 6 next season, most likely. And then will have a bigger role in 2024. He's going to sit on the sidelines a lot in 2023, but then in 2024, his role will step up for the Houston Texans. And I think that's fine, but I think he's a steal in this draft. He's a really good speed guy, and I think if he plays for the Texans a little bit this season and a lot more in 2024, I think he's a really talented wide receiver. At 248, the Houston Texans at safety select Brandon Hill. He's a good safety, but there's not a lot of places for him to play. You have Petrie, and you have Jimmy Ward. You have Javier Thomas. You have a couple other safeties on this roster. I don't see much from Brandon Hill. I think he's a good player, but the question is, who does he go over? I'm not saying anybody's going to get hurt, but I think it would take a couple players on this roster to get hurt for him to get some playing time. So, but that's just my opinion. I think he's a decent player, though, but we'll see what the Texans' plans are with him. Overall, I think the Houston Texans won this draft with some, and that's not just talking about the first round. The first round was amazing, but some of these other picks like Henry To'oTo'o and Xavier Hutchinson, Tank Dell, Dylan Horton, Juice Scruggs, I really like those 5 picks right there. And then add those with getting C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson Jr. in the first round. Amazing job by the Houston Texans, and I can't wait to see what this team does next year with the new rookies. And that's the video because enjoyed. Peace out. Go Texans.